Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys watching today's video. Always grateful for that. Guys, today we've got some good tips for you for fall fishing. We're going to be talking about wake baits in the fall time of the year. This is the time of the year that my favorite time to fish them, and I think a lot of people are not familiar, or a lot of anglers are probably not as familiar as they should be with this lure genre for topwater lures. But it's a great way and a super fun way to catch them. So I'm going to give you guys some good tips and advice in today's video. Real quick, guys, I just want to remind everybody out there, anyone interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me this fall and winter, just shoot me a message, a private message on my Facebook page, Randy Blockett Professional Angler. I can give you all the details for that. So much appreciated. Okay, guys, first of all, show you what a wake bait is and explain a little bit. There's a lot of different variations of a wake bait. This is one of them, my favorite. This is the Mega Bass iJack here. This is an old, just a cotton cordell red fin right here. Here's one of the Rapala models here, and this is a Mega Bass Anthrax here. But in general, what you have on a wake bait, guys, is a wake bait has a lip that is designed to keep this thing, even though it's a lip bait, it only will go underwater a couple of inches, which you don't even want it to go that far. A wake bait is designed to be worked like a surface lure, and the purpose of it is just like the name of the bait, to throw out a wake. So what happens is when you throw this thing out there and you're wobbling it across the water, the way that a wake bait works is it throws a wake behind the bait. You know, just like if a miniature boat and motor's coming through there. And like I said, there's several styles. Some of them are jointed like that, but they all basically do the same thing. You just reel them through the water and they just slowly go back and forth on the water. They're sort of fighting to go in the water, underwater, but they don't. They just sort of stay just like this, throwing out a wake behind them. So anyway, the wake bait, guys, it's a very situational lure, but when they're on it, you can't beat it. I mean, there's not another topwater out there that will stand with a wake bait under the right conditions. And there's pretty much, I'm talking about the conditions a little bit, and I'm talking about the time of the year. There's two windows for a wake bait for most part of the country. The first window is in the post-spawn, like maybe 3 to 4 weeks after the fish spawn. The majority of the fish spawn in the lake, they bite a wake bait pretty good. But then my favorite time is this time of year, in the fall time of the year. We're into early fall right now. The prime wake bait fishing season, I consider it like October into early November, when those water temperatures start to cool off a little bit and they start to get into the upper 50s, low 60s. That's when it's really good out here. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the conditions that you have, then we'll get into maybe some specific bait situations here. The number one thing with a wake bait, guys, now this is the most critical thing about it, of any factor. Well, there's actually two, but there's one that overrides the other one, is you've got to have either calm conditions or just a tiniest ripple on the water. You can't have any wave action whatsoever, because it basically renders these things ineffective. If you've got any type of wave action on there, they tend to want to dig down into the water and you can't see the wake. If there's wave action and wave commotion, you simply can't see the wake behind it. So the ideal situation is slick calm, or just maybe, you know, some of those days where part of the lake's calm and part of it's got a little ripple, something like that. Now, I'm not saying you can't catch them if the lake is rippled a little bit, but you have to have extremely clear water for that to work, and normally smallmouth in that environment there. So right off the bat, no wind, calm conditions. Along with that, it helps if you got some type of a low light condition, you know, cloudy, rainy, makes it even better. Early in the morning, late in the evening, those are all factors too. They're pretty much the same with all type of topwaters. And then you have to have the right water clarity. This is a clear water technique, guys. A wake bait, any type of a wake bait like this is designed for water visibilities. In my opinion, I like around that 4 foot clarity at least. I mean, if I had the preference, my water clarity would be anywhere between 4 to 10 foot in clarity. So you're going to have some type of limitations across the country where these things work at. Now, I consider the wake bait in two different type of categories. I consider them the smaller profile ones, like the Mega Bass iJack. And by the way, guys, I'll have the Baitworks link in the description. They got a big selection of wake baits if you guys want to check them out. And the jointed models, like the redfin here. Now, the two different situations that I like the non-jointed version versus the jointed version out there it has to do with the species of the bass. If I'm after straight largemouth, so say for a lake, you got a lake that's just got 90% largemouth in it, for whatever reason, the wake baits that are not jointed are a lot more productive for me. But if I have a lake that's got a mix like smallmouth and spotted bass, smallmouth and spotted bass love the jointed one. I don't understand. This is just something, I've been fishing them here in the Ozarks for 40 years. And this is just something that I have noticed from my own personal experience. Smallmouth and spotted bass will hammer the jointed model, and largemouth the unjointed model. Doesn't really make much sense at all, but that's the reality of the situation. And also, one of the things you're going to find out about the jointed models like the redfin here, they're a little bit more finicky because a lot of these things you have to, they have to be balanced just right. You got to have the right hooks on them. Some of them, they just don't work as good as some of the non-jointed models. They're really finicky, but once you get a good one that works really good, it's highly effective. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about is on these jointed models, most of them are 2-hook models, and you will miss a lot of fish with a 2-hook model. But what I've done here, I'm going to show you one that I've modified, and this makes all the difference in the world. This is just like a really good wake bait trick, is this is the same one that had 2 on it, and I added a 3rd hook in the middle right there. And what I did, if you can see right here, all I did was take the hardware off of a Zara spook, and I simply drilled it in there, put the screws in there that hold Zara hook spook hanger, hang a 3rd hook on there. And guys, when they hit this thing, I don't miss them ever, the 3 hooks on there. So I'd highly recommend, if you do use a jointed one, to use the 3-hook model instead of the 2 one with that. Colors, pretty much, you know, just depends on the light conditions. If it's really dark, really cloudy, you know, I like some type of a bone pattern. And if it's, you know, you got sun out and it's really, really calm, brighter conditions, I'll try to have something that's a little bit more see-through or translucent. Pretty much the same aboard for, you know, for all of those. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you want to work the things when you throw them out there. First of all, you know, I prefer, you know, like using 10 to 12 pound test monofilament line. Sometimes I will use like 20 pound test braided line on a spinning rod if I really want to get that cast out there a long way. Say, for example, if I'm fishing for smallmouth in clear water, I may put it on a 20 pound test straight braid. And since it's a topwater lure, I'm not really that concerned about the line being seen, but I can cast it a lot further with that braid on a spinning rod if I need to get the bait out there. But if I'm just making medium casts, which I do a lot of times, I'm just using the bait caster, 10 to 12 pound test monofilament line. But the main thing, guys, what you want to do is when you make the cast out there, you have to keep your rod tip high. A lot of times I'll keep my rod tip like at 11 o'clock. Sometimes I'll even keep it at 12 o'clock. You can't put your rod tip down like that. You need to put it at least 11 o'clock position, because that will enable most of that line to be out of the water, and the nose on the wake bait won't dig into the water. If you throw it out there and you just start reeling it like a normal plug or something like that, it's going to dig under the water and you're not going to wake it good. So you have to keep that rod tip really high. And another thing that will help you with that is using a super long rod. If you've got a rod that's like 7.5 feet long, it will help you out a lot, because you can lift that line up so much higher than even you can with like a 6.5 or 7 foot rod. So a lot of times I'll throw it on my flipping stick, my 7 foot 10 inch Megabass Alkalies. I can really get that rod tip high in the air, and I can keep that bait waking nice along the surface. And you basically just reel it in slow. You can't reel it very fast at all, because it will dive underwater. If the bait is diving underwater, where you can where the head is underwater, you're reeling that bait way too fast. So reel it just fast enough to have the thing just turning across the water and working it. Now, the best areas, guys, to fish it are 2 different areas depending upon your species this time of year. If you're on a big smallmouth lake or a lot of Kentucky spotted bass and really clear water, what are you doing? I think she's inside. There's Elijah over there. What are you doing? I'm filming a video over here.
I'm just trying to get some mommy.
Okay, well, I'll be down here in a second. Okay, let me take care of Elijah. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, we're back. Had Elijah squared away there. But anyway, the type of areas that you want to fish, there's two different areas that I like to fish based upon the species. If there's a lot of smallmouth and spotted bass in the lakes you're fishing, I like to fish main lake flats. Not necessarily the points, but just flat banks and real clear water like that. There's something about a flat bank. Normally, if they're positioned, fairly close to the main lake next to a major feeder creek can be pretty good. But anything that's got like a clay or gravelly, small rock, that type of area is really good if those flats are in clear water and they extend out with a slow slope. So say, for example, if you guys are fishing up some of the northern lakes like, Lake Cayuga or Lake Champlain or something like that, Lake St. Clair, where you got those big flats out there, excellent area for the wake bait there. But on a typical man-made impoundment, all I do, guys, is fish main lake points. That's it. I mean, I just run and gun main lake points and just try to really determine the depth that the fish are in. Most of the time, if I've got water clarity of 4 to 10 foot, I usually got the boat out there in 20 to 30 foot of water, and I'm fan casting everywhere. I'm fan casting in 30 foot, I'm fan casting in 5 foot, all over the place. Because if there's bass on that point, if they're on the bottom and it's calm out, that wake bait will get them to come to the top. And if they're suspended, it will also get them to come to the top. So you'd be surprised if you're out there on a main lake point and there's no wind whatsoever, and the water visibility is 5 or 6 foot clear, these wake baits, guys, will draw a fish from a tremendous distance. I mean, it's just, and the bite on the thing, the cool thing about a wake bait bite is every bite is different. Some of them, they come up so slow and they just suck it in. Other ones just, like to take the rod out of your hand. It is just one of the most exciting baits that I've ever fished. I got one story, but I'll wrap the video up here. My most memorable wake bait bite. I was fishing, it was Lake Champlain, and it was the last day of the last tournament of the year, the last day of the year, FLW Tour, and I was right on the bubble for making the championship. I was like the bubble boy, and I had a pretty decent bag the first day, and I figured the second day I needed probably, 14 pounds to 15 pounds to make the Forest Wood Cup out there. So anyway, it was one of those days that, it was pretty tough fishing. There wasn't much wind. It was a good topwater day, and I was fishing the wake bait, and I'd caught 4 pretty decent smallmouth and 1 small one. So it's getting towards the end of the day, and I've got 4 nice ones and a small one that probably is going to have, that smallest one I had probably weighed 1.5 pounds. And so I figure I've got with those, with my limit, I figure I've got probably, 13 pounds or so, maybe close to 14, in that range. And I'm right on the bubble of making her or not. Like, it's just like, in my mind, it's like I knew I had to get rid of that little one, because I had 4 chunks and 1 little dink. And I just said, if I can replace that little one, I know I'll make it. So anyway, guys, we're fishing and we're down to 5 minutes left. I had to run probably 20 miles back to the weigh-in. I figure I got 5 minutes left to fish. I told my co-angler, last cast, to make a long cast out there with the wake bait and walking it across the water, and all of a sudden, a giant smallmouth gets it. This is like a 5 to 6 pound smallmouth. The thing comes out of the water and annihilates this thing. I set the hook and I'm fighting it, and it's jumping all the way back to the boat. It jumped like 5 times, giant smallmouth. And I'm just running out of time. I got to get going. So I fight this fish up by the boat, and it's already survived 5 jumps like that, and the water is gin clear and there's no wind, so I can see it perfectly like it's a swimming pool down there. So my partner's standing there with the net, and I'm slowly reeling it up to the boat, and I can see it. It's about probably 4 or 5 feet under the water coming up. All of a sudden, it gets about 3 foot from the boat, about that far away from the net, and it sort of turns its head and the bait comes out of its mouth. So I lose that big smallmouth, I run in, and I miss the Forest Wood Cup by 1 freaking point on there. So that's my most memorable, frustrating wake bait story. So anyway, hope it helps you guys catch some, guys. We'll talk later.